Okay, welcome to Power Pivots, the podcast where we explore the stories behind the fundamental career shifts and changes that have made all the difference. I'm your host. I go by Hatu, and today we are talking to
Kendall Rankin.
Hey Kendall, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing so well. I'm doing so well. So it's very funny because I actually heard about your story through a random TikTok scroll, and I thought it was so captivating and so fascinating, so timely for what's going on in the market right now. And I felt that everybody had to hear about it. So I'm really glad that you're able to join us.
Awesome. Well, thank you, and thanks for watching my little random TikTok. Excited to excited to share more.
Of course. Excellent. We'll jump into it. So if you've been here with us before, you know that we always start with PowerPoints. So PowerPoints are three words or phrases that kind of encapsulate who you are, give us a better understanding of your sense of being. So Kendall, without further ado, what would you say your PowerPoints are?
Yeah, so this was a hard one. I had to think about it. So I would say community builder, tech enthusiast,
Okay.
and a woman of culture. I love
Okay.
things that have to do with, building for the culture or creating tech for the culture. So
Okay.
that's what I would
All
say.
right. Excellent, excellent. So tell me more about, you've told us about culture, right? So tell me more about the tech enthusiasm and community builder. Why are those phrases that you chose?
Yeah, so tech enthusiast because I actually grew up loving math and science and ended up going to Georgia Tech to study
Mhm.
engineering. So I have a training in the tech space. However, I have not done anything with engineering, honestly, up until my time here at Refusion, a little bit here and
Okay.
there. But I would just say I am excited about all the ways that technology is like changing the way we interact in society. I think it's really important for us to be aware, be able to pivot. And so I just use my platform or just my knowledge and try to make things make sense to people so that we're all kind of in the know. And
Awesome.
then, yeah, and then community builder. Just since I've grown up, I feel like I've always been the friend that wants to bring everybody together. I'm
Mhm.
an extreme extrovert, so I get energized by being around others and building off that energy. And even in my current role, which we'll get to, I think there's a big level of community that goes into it and just bringing people together around really cool tech and outside of tech too, just different experiences. And yeah, so love the community, love culture, and love tech.
Awesome. Awesome. Cool. And I'm sure that we're going to learn a little bit more about how that all plays into your story here. But that is super helpful. That's a good foundation to start with. So if you have been here, you know that we always jump next to the hindsight story. So they always say that the story is told in hindsight and hindsight is 2020. So that being said, Kendall, if you could put on your glasses, 2020 vision now, look back, tell us a little bit more about how you got to where you are.
Absolutely. So I always like to start and say that I grew up in Prince George's County, Maryland. So I'm from the
PG County.
DMV, PG County
Okay.
girl. So I grew up in Maryland and I feel like that was really important to just shaping who I was at a foundation level, being exposed to so much like Black excellence and people who are thriving in their careers, but also just
Mhm.
like beautiful community oriented people was a great
Mhm.
like foundation for me. And then I ended up going to Georgia Tech, as I mentioned, in Atlanta. And it was interesting being there because that was my first time really like experiencing the intersection of music and technology. And I didn't even realize it until, as you said, hindsight, like looking back, because Georgia Tech is such a technical school. A lot of people there, were majoring in engineering, but also because we're in Atlanta, a lot of people love music. And so
Mhm.
you saw a lot of people doing like sound engineering and like on the side making beats together, making songs. And so
Mhm.
Georgia Tech really was probably like the first place where I saw the intersection of that. And it's funny looking back now because even I didn't really even think about that until you asked that question. But I think that
Mhm.
was my first exposure to this like music tech space, which we'll get into. So that was interesting. And then I ended up leaving Georgia Tech, moving to Chicago and working at LinkedIn. So got my like big tech experience for a couple years. And again, like Chicago is a place of culture, similar to Atlanta in the DMV, and got to just really, explore and grow as a person when it came to my career. But then also outside of that, I spoke about the community piece, but I started like a nonprofit for building confidence in women. I, was really involved at LinkedIn. And so ultimately, though, I decided to take a little bit of a risk and join a startup nonprofit, I will say. And they're focused on gender equity and VC and entrepreneurship. And that was in Chicago. And like I was focused on building that out. But that was where I feel like the combination of tech mixed with, I would say, entrepreneurship and startup, as well as community building came into play. So I feel like at different parts of my career, there have been these like intersections of all the things that I love the most. It hasn't been up until now that I've been able to put them all together, but it's fun like looking back and seeing how some of those puzzle pieces of my experience fit together. And so after working at Allraise, which was the nonprofit I just mentioned, I went to business school. Actually, let me backtrack. So when I was at Allraise, I had the opportunity to meet with so many investors, people who were investing in the next big company. And during that time, it also was like the crypto NFT boom. So that's another time where it's like the intersection of art and technology. And a lot of these like really high profile investors were coming to me as one of like program managers, community leads, to teach them about this new technology and how it can impact their business and their investing strategy. And that made me have to become an expert very quickly on things like blockchain technology, NFTs. And so I began to see how that could open up so many doors for people to, one, just like get into an industry early, but then also like be the ones building and shaping it. So from there, like launched a newsletter about tech and culture and making it easy for people to understand. Then I made my way to business school, had an amazing time at Wharton, loved those 2 years, explored so many different things from blockchain, AI, entrepreneurship, leading AMBA, our African American MBA Association. And ultimately, though, which I think we'll get to, I left with no job, but that is why we are here to chat. But what I will say is I think all of those experiences leading up had a really unique intersection that kind of has led to where I am today. And I'm really thankful for all of them along the way.
Okay. Awesome. This is a very good platform for us to go off of, right? So it's very interesting knowing kind of like where you are right now and looking back, you're able to see the pieces that contributed to your interest, right? So obviously you're working at a startup right now and you were able to build that startup interest to Allraise. Being able to get up to date on new technology, you were able to use that and kind of use it as a catalyst to start the newsletter, right? To be able to help people get up to speed on these things, similar to the way that you had to as well. And then also, being at Georgia Tech at the time that you were there with the folks that you went to school with, being able to see people who were combining art, music, and technology, it was something that was somewhat of a norm to you, right? And you can easily be able to make the linkages and understand the intersectionality between those two.
Exactly. Yes. Beautiful summary.
Okay, no worries. That's what I'm here for. Okay, so you go to Wharton. Obviously, when you go to business school, you have big dreams, and then you're expecting your big business school job. I've also been in this position as someone who graduated literally at the top of the pandemic. So I feel the pain here. But talk to me a little bit more about that. So you've graduated, and then what?
Yeah, if I'm honest, graduating from business school with no job and no plan, it was a very weird experience. Even though I knew the job market was bad, I don't think like we saw this impact with the class before me. And so therefore trying to navigate that felt kind of embarrassing, honestly. And it made me wonder, like, was coming to business school worth it? Ultimately, obviously, like it 100% was, but I remember graduation day just feeling everyone was so excited, but I internally just felt like we were celebrating something that didn't really happen. yet.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
it was a rough time. But what I will say is because I knew I was planning to recruit for startups, I knew that the summer was where I was gonna probably be doing a lot of recruiting. I didn't necessarily expect for my recruiting period to last as long as it did. So I expected maybe, midsummer in July of 2024 or by August or by September, which my birthday is September 7th. So I was
Hmm.
like, yeah, by my birthday, I'll have a job. I'll be moving to Chicago. Like I
Yeah.
had this plan in my head that just
Hmm.
completely did not happen.
Yeah.
And so it just forced me to like get really scrappy and ultimately have to make a way out of nothing when there was like
Yeah.
no path and felt like there were no resources or support along that
Hmm.
path.
Yeah. So it's funny because again, there are a lot of parallels between our experiences because number one, I was born in September. Also, my birthday September 22nd.
Oh,
So
okay, okay. I
exactly.
love that. September baby.
Yeah, September. Actually, funny enough, my brother's birthday is actually September 7th. Also, so
Wait,
more on that.
really? Oh
Yeah,
my
it is.
gosh.
I
Oh,
know exactly.
love
More on
that.
that. Yeah, more on that. But the other aspect too is I also have gone through that, right? And I can understand why when you finish school, you want to have a job, right? And I've talked about it before on like our TikTok, the Power Pivots TikTok, about rushing to try and have a job by graduation, which I did in undergrad, and then accepting at the current state of the job market in 2020 that I was not going to have a job by graduation and kind of just dealing with that. And like you said, it does make graduation a little more somber when it shouldn't, right?
Right.
Because it's there to celebrate the degree, not what is to come after. But
Yeah.
at that point, there's no timeline that's really there. I think we put artificial timelines on ourselves, right?
Yeah.
But did you come to school in particular to pivot into the startup space? Because you've done big tech
Yes.
before, you've done, community management and in nonprofit before. Was that your goal of like, okay, I'm going to use this as a way to be able to pivot?
Yeah. So I knew that coming out of business school, I wanted to be either with like a high growth startup. Like I wrote about that actually in my essays. And I knew I wanted to be, I said deep tech or blockchain technology. So
Hmm.
I kind of did it just a little more delayed, but
Yeah.
I found my way there. But yes, because I ultimately wanted to be in a role where I had a lot of ownership, where I felt like I had a chance to grow with the company. And I think a lot of the larger corporations say, you can grow with the company, but it just might
Mhm.
take a little while. And so for me, I
Yeah.
wanted to be part of that. And Allraise actually was the organization or the time in my career that pushed me to want to consider working at a startup, just because I also saw
Mhm.
how working at a startup could benefit you financially if you're with the
Mhm.
right startup. So that was also
Right.
something that piqued my interest as well.
Got it. Okay. Does Power Pivots inspire you to reevaluate your career path? If so, look into Power Pivots career coaching. Whether you're interested in career discovery, job description dissection, or interview prep, I take a tailored approach to helping you understand your ultimate career goals and get closer to them. Interested? Fill out the interest form at the bottom of the show notes for your free 30-minute consultation. For any questions, email hatu@powerpivots.co. That's HATU at powerpivots.co. As always, pivot powerfully. Cool. So at this point, you know that you want to make the pivot into the startup industry. And like you said, the resources weren't there for your class and it was just a much different job market. So you've graduated at this point. Then how do you make it happen? How did this pivot happen?
Yes. So I'm going to take you on a journey here because I was on a
Okay,
journey. So we're going to go on a journey.
let's go. Let's go.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, I expected to graduate and recruit in the summer, have my job on my birthday in September. That did not happen. I remember my mom talks about this because I ended up going back home to Maryland
Mhm.
and staying with them. So grateful to have like a healthy home situation where I can go back. Like that was a blessing. And my mom, she would always like joke with me about how it felt like recruiting was a full-time job for me. Like she
Mhm.
was like, Kendall, you would wake up, you would go to the gym, and then you would come home and literally just be like applying to things you see on LinkedIn, applying to stuff you found in newsletters, just like doing a lot of that. And what I will say is I am lucky in the sense that I feel like getting interviews. I was getting people to, sometimes respond and have good
Mhm.
informational coffee chats. But ultimately, I found myself in this very frustrating cycle of like getting an interview, moving on. Sometimes I make it to the second round and then I don't hear anything for a while from recruiters and I feel discouraged. I know what that means. Email them, they're like, no, we moved on. Or there were times like in the fall, especially where I got to the final round of two companies. And so I'm talking like multiple rounds, right? Like four rounds per company, case studies with the companies, and just very involved processes. And I thought I had it in the bag. We both asked for reference checks. And I was like, oh my gosh, after months of interviewing, I'm going to get two jobs in 1 week. Oh, this is going to be great. We're going to celebrate. What am I going to pick? Like I was literally in my head doing the mental gymnastics of like, where will I let it was, yeah. So then I didn't hear anything from either of them for a while. And I, again, kind of knew what that meant. And so I remember the week where I got the official rejections from both of them, I was so crushed. Like I literally was at home, just on the floor, crying. My mom was like, Kendall, it's going to be okay. You're like, whatever. But I was just like, I feel like I had failed. At this point, it was probably end of October, early November. And like the thought of going into the holidays with no job, explaining to people, they're like, oh, what are you up to now? Or even just running into people in my hometown or in the DMV that like either graduated from business school too, or just knew me from like previous parts of my life and had always seen me achieve and achieve and achieve. And this felt like I had failed. And so I just like didn't want to go out. I didn't want to do anything because no one wanted to hire me. Yeah. And so I feel like this was very much needed in my story because it felt like I had hit rock bottom in terms of my career. And so it caused me to literally reflect on like, okay, you've been rejected from these roles, not because they don't think you're a good candidate, just because there's someone else that fits the role better. And so for me, I'm like, okay, well, and this sounded kind of counterintuitive, but I'm glad that like I have friends that were the ones that pushed me in this direction. My one friend, Jamila, actually, she was like, Kendall, you're applying to these jobs, but like, they're roles that you kind of don't really want, but they're kind of interesting. You're applying to these companies that are in healthcare or like random industries that you've never expressed any interest in. And maybe that's the reason you're not getting it, because there truly are better fits. So she's like, what if you were just to be so bold and audacious to go for the things and the opportunities that feel like they're out of your reach because they feel too good to be true. And you just pitch it that way. You find companies that you really actually care about. And so for me, I'm big into music, as I mentioned, and technology. And so I literally went on LinkedIn. I searched music AI in the search bar, click search, found this one guy who writes a lot about music technology. He had created a market map of all companies in the music AI space right now. And I remember literally one day, like I feel like I hit gold with that. Like I was like, oh my gosh, this is a list of companies I've never heard of. I want to go down the list, look into each of them, see if I'd be interested in working with them. Ended up doing that. And again, mind you, this was like maybe 24 or 48 hours after getting my rejection. So I feel like I was on just like go mode. I was like, I gotta make something shake before the holidays. And so I ended up finding Refusion. At the time, they were very different from the app that they are now, but it was basically you take a picture of something and it creates a short song for you based on that picture. And so I remember using it, thinking it was really cool. And I was like, you know what? What if I make a song about why they should hire me using their app? And so I took a picture and then I like made a song and I ended up crafting an email, a very thorough email about me and who I am, included the song about like why you should hire me. And honestly, the song was not that great, but I think they just maybe appreciated that. They appreciated that I took the initiative to actually use their product and like try to be creative. So when I reached out, I also had to say like what type of work I was interested in. And I basically said, I was like, what do I actually want to do? Like, I know most of my classmates are trying to go into like strategy, operations, like all those types of roles. But for me, as I mentioned, I'm a community builder. I love like culture, creativity. And even though I'm an engineer, I think that side of my brain just really like, I haven't really used it as much in a professional sense. So what if I could work at a very technical company, doing something with music, something that I love, while also flexing the creative side, the community building side of me. And so I just pitched that. I said, like, hey, like, I'd be down to help in any of these areas. And I also saw, based on their team makeup on LinkedIn, that they didn't have anybody in like a marketing or like community partnerships type of role. And so I was like, I could be that for them, right? And at the time, I
Yeah.
didn't know if they were hiring. They were on the site. It just said all, researchers, machine learning people. But I was like, you know what? I've seen that people will make opportunities for those that show initiative, for those that have the skill set and those that can just add value to the company. Let me just shoot my shot. I sent the
Yeah.
email over to the CEO, who I found on LinkedIn. And then I got a message back in 15 minutes from the CEO saying he wanted to talk the next day, which was a Friday. And when I tell you I got that message, I was falling to the floor again, but this time in a happy way. I was
Yeah.
like, Mom, oh my gosh, like someone got back to me. They want to talk.
Yeah.
So I ended up meeting with him. But the night before I met with him, I created a presentation about who I was, random ideas that I had for the company. And ultimately, and it was very light. It was like 3 slides. I didn't want to overwhelm them, but I wanted to show I
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
thinking about something. So sent it over to the CEO before we met. We had a conversation where he basically was just telling me about the company, and I was sharing more about myself with him. And they had an event coming up, and they basically wanted some of my input on how to make the event really amazing. And then also, so the CEO, we met that Friday, and then he was like, yeah, let's touch base next week. And, here are some things we're working on. Let me know your thoughts. So I literally spent the whole weekend like deep diving into music AI. I ended up writing like a 7-page document about like all my ideas, a competitor analysis, like all the things that I thought that they could benefit from, and met with the CEO a couple times. They ended up flying me out to their event so that I could help them put it on. So I was there at the headquarters for 3 days for kind of like an on-site. And then the next day after I got back from that, they ended up extending the offer. So it was a whirlwind. It probably all happened in like 3 weeks from when I initially reached out, but it was something that I feel like I needed, because I'm like, I don't know how much longer I could have gone with all the rejections and everything. So
wow, what a journey, what a ride. So much there. And first of all, I've been again where you have been, literally crying, and your mom is telling you that it's going to be okay in the job search. And listen, there is not quite a rock bottom, like a career rock bottom like that.
Right. No, it's so crazy.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely humbling and definitely very eye-opening. But
for sure,
I want to harp on some of the tools that you were able to use to get out of that. Number one, the aspect of really letting true interest guide you, right? I always tell clients, candidates alike, is something that you're truly interested in, you will be propelled and have more horsepower to perform in that more than anybody else who does not have real interest. So for instance, for someone like you who's interested in that, if you're applying to things that are in healthcare, it genuinely like shows, like as you're talking, the excitement in your voice, like your intonation, like just your mannerisms, that the interest is not there, regardless of how much you try to put up the front. So that's what it presents as externally. But even like how the energy that you have to do the research, the energy that you have to be able to look at the market map and really dig in deep into the different products that are in the space, right? Finding Refusion's app and actually using it, right? And being able to go with that, like that is something that is propelled by genuine interest. Now, besides from that, right, you also mentioned the aspect of how you were able to make the song and pitch it to the CEO, right? And I think a lot of times people talk about scrappiness and like being able to like have that in the startups. That is quintessentially just showing them, hey, I have what it takes to just figure stuff out and make something out of nothing, literally, right? So I'm sure he was not expecting when he opened his inbox that somebody wrote an email pitching themselves and made a song based on that using the product, right? So it shows that you believe in the product. It shows that you have an understanding of what they're looking for. And then you also had done research on not only who the CEO was from LinkedIn, but also what positions they had open and what they didn't have, and came to them with a solution of what you could address, right? So a lot of times people will say, they'll make a job for you. They want to make a job for you. Yeah, that's fair and it's true, but you have to put in some legwork to do that, right? And I think that you
Yeah.
perfectly demonstrated how you showed how you could add value for them,
Yep.
right? And the other aspect to it, I want to go back to this, is like, this is such an important aspect, especially in this job market right now, where it's very difficult to make headway, right? It's like being able to be aggressive and focus your attention in a specific area makes a huge difference. And especially with products or with teams that are working in a creative manner, if you show things in the mold of what they're doing, right? Where if you're a designer and you design something that has the same kind of like look and feel as the company that you're pitching to, or like for you, right? You make a song based on the product or the app of the company
Yep.
that you want to work in, then it feels familiar to them. And it feels like it's something that makes sense. And consistently in the job search for recruiters, for teams alike, you really want to make sure that what you're doing makes sense, right? And that's
Yep.
clearly what you have done. Right. So, I
Absolutely.
mean, masterclass in being able to navigate such a tough job market, being able to show that you're scrappy and really propel yourself into the startup space.
Yeah. Thank you. I
Of
appreciate it.
course.
You just got to be
Of
bold.
course.
Fortune favors the bold.
It really does. It really does. It really does. So I know that you mentioned this before, and obviously we know how crucial this pivot has been. But for you, why is it so important right now to work in the deep tech AI space? And especially from a creative standpoint.
Yeah, it is actually crucial, and I don't think people realize it yet. First, and I can just speak for AI specifically. Being here in San Francisco, or just in the Bay Area in general, and like being on the ground, like working at a research lab that's dedicated to music, like you hear so much about what's going on and how quickly things are moving, how quickly models are progressing. And it's like we need people of all different backgrounds and ethnicities and just ways of thinking to be the ones on the ground building and influencing how these models are ultimately coming to market and like what they ultimately result in, the types of results they give back, or how ethical the data we're using is. And I think that we're in such an inflection point in time where we haven't really seen this big of a pivot when it comes to
Mhm.
the way that technology is going to impact the trajectory of just like humans in general.
Mhm.
And I also think it's just like easier than ever right now to use this technology if you're not technical, if you've never coded anything in your life. Like there's so many
Mhm.
ways to get involved, whether you're joining a company, whether you are building your own app. And like someone made literally $3 million from building an app on using AI and they don't know how to code. Like there's so many
Mhm.
ways for, I think, us, specifically just Black people in general, to advance ourselves and be at the forefront. I also, just back to what I was saying, there's the diversity of perspective, especially, is just so crucial. Because right now I look around and even, I look at teams that I respect and admire that are doing incredible things that I know are going to take off. And they all look pretty homogenous, right? Like they all
Mhm.
look the
Mhm.
same. They're all here in the Bay. But when you're doing something like, for example, music, right? Music touches people across the world. It's universal. It's like music and food are the two things that everyone can understand and appreciate no matter what
Right.
language you speak. And
Right.
so having an understanding and like not infiltrating these spaces, but because we belong or deserve to be there too, but finding your
Mhm.
way to the table to inform decisions is, I just think, very important. So that's my soapbox. And also, as I mentioned before, the economic impacts of getting in early at these really great companies, it could just change your life, and a little piece of equity can go a long way when it comes to the future
There,
of like AI and these companies.
there you go. Awesome. Yeah. That's super important, right? It's like the technology is changing and changing very quickly. I'm sure you've seen those maps of like the speed at which technology has changed over the past couple centuries. And like,
Yeah,
it's like warp speed right now, like on a daily basis. So
right.
being able to have that understanding and being able to get in on what is seemingly like the ground floor, because it's only going to continue, right?
Exactly.
It's super important.
Yep.
So with Refusion, you're doing growth there, right? And I think that this is a term that you kind of hear with startups, especially early stage startups, that not a lot of people have an understanding of what that is. So what exactly does growth entail?
Yes. So growth is kind of like an all encompassing term.
Okay, fair, fair.
I would say it can mean so many different things at different companies. I think at my company, what I specifically focus on is kind of a combination of marketing. So figuring out like the traditional stuff like ads or like working with creators and influencers to promote our product.
Mhm,
There's community, which I think involves like our digital and online community. So how we're like hosting events in real life, how we are managing our Discord and keeping people active and invested.
mhm,
And there's also like partnerships. So when people come to Refusion and they want to, work with us or partner on something or, get us integrated into their products, like I'm kind of the one of the first lines of defense there. And then honestly, just so much other stuff that pops up that I think would probably fit in the operations bucket. But if I had to put give an overview, I would just say marketing, partnerships, community is kind of what I
mhm.
see growth as being. Anything that will help get more users, retain more users, and make the company a lot of money is what growth means,
Awesome.
at least to Refusion.
Good deal. Amazing. Awesome. So obviously you have shared so much with us, an amazing story. What is some advice that you would give yourself, right? And if you had to give yourself the advice before the pivot happened and then some advice that you generally stand by now, what does that look like?
Yeah, before, if I could give myself advice while I was actively searching, I would just remind myself that you deserve the opportunity not to settle, and
Mm,
that settling, even though it feels like the safe option at the time, it ultimately can lead to regret, which compounds, or it can lead to, you just being a little bit off track. I believe you'll always be, find your way and you'll be aligned to what your destiny is, but I think don't settle. Make sure that you know your worth even when you feel the lowest, and
mhm,
that recruiting is hard, but you've gotten through all your hard days. You're going to be okay. So
mhm,
that's one thing I'll say pre. Post, I'll say just like keep being audacious, keep being bold, take up space, especially in these environments where there aren't a lot of people like me in them. And I feel like I have a unique opportunity to be, just one of the first kind of navigating this space.
mhm,
And I think just not being limited based on even some expectations I put on myself, like knowing that
mhm.
I will continue to be wowed by my next step and by my next move. And you never know where that will come from. Keep just being curious, being hungry, and being bold, but backing it
Yeah,
up with some facts
yeah.
and some work. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Obviously, there's a lot for you to be excited about here, but is there anything in particular that you would say that you're looking forward to with your position at Refusion right now?
Yeah, I think I'm excited just for, and as a startup, you pivot so much and we
Mhm.
always have new things that are like coming up on the horizon. So definitely stay tuned and, kind of just see what we're working on. But
Okay.
I would say that I'm excited about one day being able to build out a team at Refusion, being able to step into more of a leadership capacity, and then also just like getting more people to use Refusion and to see AI
Mhm.
music and the power and fun and joy that it can provide for people. Even though I
Mhm.
know it feels controversial, like it still is something that gives so many people access to making music, which should
Mhm.
always be a good thing. And I don't think making music should be gatekept to those that maybe were born with talent or have access to make music, or if you live in
Mhm.
LA, right? So I think it'll
Yeah.
just lift up a new generation of musical talent and inspire more creativity. And so that's what I'm ultimately excited for.
Perfect. Perfect. You have shared so much with us, Kendall. This has been amazing. Any parting words of wisdom? I know you've given us a lot, but any parting words of wisdom that you'd want to share with people who are in similar situations or who are looking to make a pivot similar to yours, whether it's startup, whether it's pivoting into AI, things of that nature?
Yeah, I think I said it earlier and you mentioned it too, but just it's so important to really like find what it is that you care about, because that authenticity will shine through no matter who you're talking to. People will be able to pick up on if you're authentic, especially in this world where like everyone's using ChatGPT to write emails and things can come across as inauthentic. But if you are doing things because you truly love them, truly enjoy them, it will come across, and you deserve probably more than what you think you deserve too. And greater is always coming. It's on the way. And yeah, I'm excited for you. Whoever's
Awesome.
listening, I'm excited for you to get your dream opportunity.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, there you have it, y'all. There you have it. There you have it. Thank you, Kendall, so much for sharing your wisdom with us.
Yes, thank you, Hatu.
Of course, of course, of course. And thank you all for tuning in. Please remember to like and subscribe for more. Most importantly, pivot powerfully. Be well, everyone.